Hi, everybody. David Dilling here, and on the other side of the Skype is Pariah Burke, and Pariah is in Oregon. I thought he was in Boston, but he was in Boston some years ago, but now he's in Oregon. And we're going to talk about Quark versus InDesign, and of course that ties into our Quark to InDesign, our conversion tools. But before we get into that, Pariah, maybe you can tell the viewers a bit about yourself and your background and what you're doing today.
Thanks, David. Really happy to be here. Let's see. I've done all sorts of stuff, and these days I'm doing. I teach ePublishing with InDesign and at Portland State University, which is a postgraduate class for the publishing program. Most of my students are grad students, and they'll go on to work at publishing houses. A couple of them have started small press publishing houses, and I teach them largely the InDesign, largely the publishing part of it, but focusing on starting in InDesign, then editing the code, and then the business of ePublishing and all that. And a lot of them won't necessarily be doing the layout themselves. A lot of them will be managing layout artists, but they need to know how to do it.
Right.
So I love doing that. I also do a completely separate career, which is a rock and roll radio show.
Yeah.
That's catered around the world on 5 continents.
Wow.
A lot of hair bands, hard rock, 80s stuff. So, 70s, 80s, and then all the way through to today.
Right. Wow. And I guess that explains your background. You got that sound, what do you call it? Sound foam or whatever? Or...
Oh, yeah. It's sound dampening foam. It's an isolation vocal booth. I also do a lot of video instruction courses for a company called Pluralsight. I go in there and do the voiceovers, and then I've done some voiceover freelance work, every once in a while. Excuse me.
There goes the voice.
My friends are fun. Yeah, the irony, talking about voiceover work and my voice cracks. So every once in a while I'll get a message from a friend saying, "Hey, I heard you on a phone tree." Press this for that, or if you're calling to talk,
Oh, right. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Interesting. But were you born in the Massachusetts area, or are you from?
Yeah, I'm originally from Boston, and I grew up mostly there. But I have lived in the four corners of the U.S.
Yeah, you hear it because it's not, your Bostonian accent is dampened. Like mine, because I grew up in Massachusetts too. But
oh, okay.
I love the Boston accent. Too bad it's not respected more.
It is funny though. How it's shown up in more and more movies.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I noticed that. Yeah. Very cool. Very interesting background. I always remember you with Markzware, back when all the C-Bowls and stuff, you were always like, I don't know, you were always training and doing reviews and yeah, kind of like an industry, journalist expert, so to speak.
Yeah, that was kind of where I was. I was a graphic designer for many years, and I owned my own agency. And then one day, Adobe called me up and said, we're opening up a new North American tech support center. We need people to come in, train our people in how the customers actually use our products. So that got me into training, and then that got me getting really excited about other people doing things with tools and trying to help other people make their jobs easier.
Wow.
As a designer and an agency owner, I know the frustrations there were, like things like your customers have PageMaker and you're working in Quark.
Yeah.
Your customers are working in QuarkXPress, and now there's this new product called InDesign. And, do you rebuild everything? And then out comes Markzware with these really cool conversion tools. And I got really excited because it was, I don't have to have 2 screens and rebuild every little box, every little style from scratch. I can convert. So I got really excited. Now, I think the Markzware products, it might have been was it PM to QX?
Yeah, PM to Q, yeah. PageMaker to Quark. That was a big one back in the day. That was just selling like...
Yeah, and it was an amazing product, and I think that might have been one of my very first reviews, and I was so excited about it. I just wanted to tell everybody, look, this is going to save you time.
Yeah.
And then, InDesign starts picking up momentum, and then your Q to ID product comes out, and I got just as excited about that.
Wow.
So yeah,
interesting.
The reviews came about because I just liked teaching and helping people do things, and make their jobs easier. And companies like yours were like, well, hey, we got this great solution to this problem. It's like, yeah, let me take a look. And then Macworld was like, hey, tell people about it. We'll pay you to tell them.
Good deal.
Like
yeah. Yeah. Interesting. Okay. Because you still do training and stuff for InDesign, correct?
I do.
And ePubs.
I'm more selective now, and I used to be traveling all over the place doing corporate gigs, corporate training gigs, and then public classes, and then the average internet speed went up, so that's video training became more popular, so I've done a lot of that.
Right. Yeah. Of course. Yeah. But another thing on your website, which will lead into the next part of why I was really excited that Mary Gay set up this little discussion with us, is of course you had an old website which we've since learned has been a little bit like taken over by somebody else and scraped, and the content is half there and half not. But that was Quark versus InDesign, and you can see it on your current site. It's, you call it the war, a brief history of the war. And oh, ouch! And I remember, back in the day, this was like a site to go to and check out the latest facts and figures, what was going on, and what was Adobe coming out. What was Quark? I mean, it was a really popular site. But maybe you can tell us a bit more about how that Quark versus InDesign started back in the day.
Well, it was the first commercially successful site in our business, or blog in our business. In graphic design, stuff publishing, the whole. In fact, I remember Anne-Marie Concepcion on the Adobe forums one day saying that she couldn't believe somebody had actually found a way to make a profitable website talking about InDesign and Quark. A couple of years later, we got InDesignSecrets.com, but
and the rest is history. Yeah.
But so it was. I think I started it in 2002, 2003, and I was still working at Adobe at the time. I was still teaching. I was still training Adobe tech support people, how to use, among other things, InDesign, and to understand the terms that Adobe customers will talk to them in.
Right.
And it was, and that's, like I said, that was kind of when I got the bug for teaching. It was, okay, I'm seeing, and sometimes I would talk to customers on the phone. If a tech support agent couldn't, if the conversation just went to a certain level, when I would graduate a class, I would follow them out onto the floor for a few weeks, and then I would be their backup and kind of their next level for customer calls. So I started getting excited about, well, what can these products do for Adobe customers? And then what can all these plugins, because that was the big boom of the plugin era for InDesign and QuarkXPress extensions, it just got bigger again. And then companies like Markzware coming out with these conversion tools. So I was like, I got to tell somebody, doing the conferences, doing the training classes, but I also wanted to write articles and blog posts about it. And then, I started also getting the inside scoop on things that were happening inside Adobe and inside Quark, and and working at Adobe, I had insider information. I was under NDA for a lot of it, but some of the marketing managers and some of the other department heads were like, "Yeah, go ahead and leak this. Go ahead and talk about that." So I started talking about it on the blog, and this is coming for InDesign. This is coming for Illustrator once in a while. And then I started really hearing from people in the comments and then emails I get how passionate they are about using QuarkXPress or using this new InDesign product. And then, events like Mac OS X comes out and InDesign's right on top of it, adopting that. And then Quark was lagging, and that created a whole lot of discussion and feeling in the field. And,
there were so many battles in the war, and it was very interesting. People who might not know, QuarkXPress is, of course, a Adobe InDesign like product. It still exists. They still have actually quite a few users. They're a bit older. They're like my age and older, but there are still people using QuarkXPress. It's not taught in the schools anymore like it was. Most people are running InDesign like you're teaching your students. But
in Australia, they are. They have.
Oh, really?
Quark has a deal with Scholastic in Australia, and probably other countries. But I happen to know the Australian and New Zealand connection there.
Interesting. Well, that's good.
With they're pushing it.
Because the young people over here in Netherlands and in Europe in general, and even America, when I do some of these interviews, they don't even barely. I've heard of it. I've heard of that Quark, or many nowadays even they don't even know where it is. Never heard of it. So Quark is like Adobe InDesign, and it was the king of desktop publishing back in the day,
Oh yeah, late '80s throughout the '90s, they ruled the decade of the '90s.
Yeah.
They. The first one was PageMaker and Ventura Publisher way back in the early mid '80s. And then Ventura became a lot more technically oriented, like FrameMaker. If viewers are familiar with FrameMaker, it's very coding centric.
Yeah.
And PageMaker was the more user friendly one for people who wanted to do, who didn't want to have to learn how to code, basically.
Right.
And then QuarkXPress comes along, and it's competing with PageMaker. And then PageMaker's development, PageMaker was owned by Aldus.
Right.
And the PageMaker code base was so complicated, even the programmers who worked on PageMaker didn't know exactly what was going on everywhere.
Oh, boy.
So adding new features and even fixing long-term bugs was always a problem. So QuarkXPress comes along, they're innovating, they're iterating new versions, new features. And then Aldus, I forget exactly when, I think it was the early 90s, Aldus said, you know what, the code base for PageMaker is just too complicated. We're going to scrap it. We're going to start all over. We're building this new product with some of the same ideas, but it's going to be much cleaner code, and we're going to call it K2, which is the tallest mountain in the world, I guess.
Yeah.
And then Adobe bought Aldus largely for this K2 product, but there were some other things like the freehand technology.
Yeah.
And then K2 became InDesign, and that launched in '98, I think.
Yeah.
And about a year later, InDesign could actually print. There was a whole hubbub about that. The first version couldn't print PostScript printers.
Oh.
And then InDesign started building up momentum and competing with QuarkXPress.
Yeah. CS2 was like the first time it, got a little bit more serious, from what I remember. And then of course CS3, it really started rolling. And I don't know the years offhand, but that was something else when people just started really going in droves, switching to InDesign from Quark, because we then had, of course, the Q to ID, the Quark to InDesign converter, and that just was going bananas, And to a certain degree still is. Now it's QXPMarkz, what we call it. There's a new product we'll talk about in a second, but it's amazing how many people still need that product.
They do. And well, QuarkXPress is not a dead product. QuarkXPress is still out there. They are they've shifted their marketing to be more major workflow focused, enterprise level publishing. And they've got, InDesign has InDesign Server, which is like a headless version of InDesign, and you can program it, and a lot of it can be like a web interface or a mobile interface. You just fill in data, and then InDesign can generate, layouts for you. And QuarkXPress can do the same thing. And they've got their editorial components that both of them will run newspapers. QuarkXPress, and I could be wrong about this. I haven't been following the numbers as closely the last couple of years, but last I heard, QuarkXPress was ahead in the daily newspaper market, running, like the daily. I don't want to say a particular newspaper name because I don't know if they're still using it, but
right.
So it's out there.
Oh yeah.
And they still do some high volume press work, and In Japan, they have a pretty good desktop market hold. Australia, like I said, because they can get that deal with Elastic, are being exposed to it in school and then up through secondary and university.
Which is good. Yeah.
Competition is good.
And like the guy interviewed earlier today, you could see that Dutch guy was an English interview. I did it with him in Netherlands last week and today in English. He uses QXPMarkz, and he's still getting Quark documents in from big publishers that want ePubs, and he flips them into InDesign because there he has a whole workflow and can do the ePubs a lot easier, and makes the ePubs that way using our tool to get the Quark files into But like you said, a lot of big publishers still using it.
Yeah, but that is a great use for the plugin. Like I said, I teach ePublishing at a university, and it's mostly focused around InDesign and the hand coding. And a lot of times you'll get some of these publishing houses taking their old catalog material, which is laid out in QuarkXPress for the print books, and then they want to update them and create ePubs. Well, I mean, Quark does ePubs, but not as well as InDesign does.
Right.
You actually just gave me something else, so I think I might start. So my next semester is coming up in about a month. It's starting in about a month, teaching the ePub class. I think I'm going to add your products into the mention of tools, so that at least my students know this is in their toolbox when
they come across
a lot of books that were published in the 80s, 90s, early aughties, they all still used QuarkXPress for layout.
Yeah.
But they're being migrated to ebook.
Right.
So
where they just need a certain part, certain chapters. We're still getting publisher files in from certain large publishers. It's amazing. But anyway, okay. So we'll wrap up this Quark versus InDesign part. How would you summarize the war and the I don't want to say the end of the war because Quark's still around, but it kind of is. I mean, InDesign did kind of win. So how would you kind of summarize that all?
Yeah, if InDesign definitely won. QuarkXPress is there. It's still fighting battles. But InDesign also has a suite going for it. Everyone needs Photoshop. Everyone needs Illustrator. Affinity's got its new products, but they're not really taken seriously yet. So if you need Photoshop, if you need Illustrator, if you need Acrobat, and there are alternatives to that, but then you're going to buy Photoshop and Illustrator. You're going to subscribe to Creative Cloud. Well, why would you buy another $1,200 a year product to do layout when you got one already included? So, and that's not to say that InDesign is inferior. In almost every way, I think it's superior to QuarkXPress. There's a couple of things that Quark does better, but I think InDesign just won. And InDesign is fun to use.
Yeah.
QuarkXPress is a lot. It's gotten more fun in the last 10, 15 years, but it's just not. You don't sit down and go, "Oh, I love using this product."
Yeah. That's important. The intuitive and that knowing. That's definitely okay. So you would say in summary, the battle was won because of the entire package that Adobe could offer compared to Quark.
That and Quark's customer service.
Yeah, well, that was a big one. It started the whole, Yeah.
Quark in the 90s. Quark was run by Fred Ebrahimi, and Fred was not a customer service-focused CEO. And then the company, I understand, has changed hands a couple of times since then. And their customer service was never great, but they did try to fix that.
Yeah. It definitely got better. Yeah.
Sorry?
It definitely got better the last years.
Yeah. But for a while, they were really hostile to customers.
Oh, yeah. No, it was bad back in the day. It didn't make any sense, actually. Even if you were the king of desktop publishing, there's no reason to really disrespect the customers is what a lot of people felt that it was. Interesting. Okay. All right. Interesting. Yeah. But that was a great site you had. It was very very much followed back in the day,
It was a lot of fun. And it was great. All the conversations that resulted, and this was back before there were blogs, or before there were a lot of blogs.
Right.
The average blog was, I ate French fries today for lunch, and I have a secret crutch. There wasn't business level.
No, it was like social media. The blog was like a social media type of thing.
Yeah.
You did that to share your daily thoughts. Now you have Facebook and Twitter and all that stuff. So. Have you tried our new product yet, QXPMarkz? Because I think you did get it.
I did get it. I've opened it and looked around, but I haven't done any real production work with it, but I'm excited about it.
Yeah. So QXPMarkz is just like Q to ID, only now it gives you a preview of the Quark file, and you can export not only to IDML or InDesign, but also to Affinity Publisher and other desktop publishing tools.
I caught that. I tried an early version of Affinity Publisher. I haven't tried it lately, lately being the last couple of years. But I caught that you supported it, and that made me want to.
Oh, you should definitely check it out. It does have a nice intuitive feel about it. It's got some really interesting things where you add your text in there, and it's really neat. And a lot of Quark users that I've seen, the ones that are switching, are doing so because it's really affordable, and they're like, older Quark documents. They're retired designers or part-time printers, and they don't need a full Adobe suite, and they don't need QuarkXPress anymore for that price. So they're just using Affinity Publisher as sort of a way to keep their content alive, so to speak. There are some like long documents are difficult with Affinity Publisher still. So like for magazine and book publishing, it's still very difficult to get professionals from InDesign to switch to Affinity. That there's no real reason,
But I'm definitely excited about. I've got a handful of QuarkXPress documents that I need to convert. Recent ones, I think QuarkXPress 2017 or the version before that. I need to convert those over to InDesign and work with them in there. So I'm really excited about giving it a try for that.
Yeah.
And not recreate everything by hand.
Yeah, I look forward to your feedback. I mean, it's going to be pretty much the same ultimate result. You're going to get a Quark document that's now open in InDesign for you, but there's a few more bells and whistles around there, which is kind of neat. So yeah, I look forward to your feedback. And you were saying you're interested to try the PDF to InDesign one as well one of these days. So that hopefully get to do that soon too.
Yeah, I mean, if I haven't been able to find a project to do it with yet, but I would really like to just play with it, even if I have to sit there and make my own document in InDesign just to convert from PDF to InDesign. Yeah, just to try.
Yeah.
I'm a geek who I just love playing with these tools.
Oh yeah, you'd love it. Yeah, it's like we were talking before. It's really when people use it, they're really just because if all you have left is that PDF and you need to get elements for a customer out of there quick and use in another way, it's you get the logo out, you get the text out, everything is live text, live layers, colors, you name it. So yeah, that's really a handy one. But okay, great, Brian. So yeah, it was nice touching base with you again here after, I don't know, last time we talked was years ago, so
yeah, it's been a while.
It's really amazing. Let me just show folks before we go here. This is Pariah on what do you call it? The LinkedIn. So there you can see instructor, designer, trainer, developer, technical trainer, product evangelist. So in Beaverton. And there you can see all the rest of Pariah's rich experiences and talents. And I'll leave a link to all of this in the description below. And yeah, anything else you want to say before we go, Pariah?
If anybody watching is learning InDesign, my books are still available on Amazon. The book writing business for software is kind of slowed down for Adobe software anyway. It has dried up because of the release cycle. Publishers just can't keep one book on the shelf long enough to make any money.
Could imagine, yeah.
But my books are a little out of date, but they're still useful, and they're usually on pretty good sales. And I'm not making any royalties from them. It's just people like them. And they still are informative. So, cool. And I would rather they help somebody than they just sit in the bargain bin. You know what I mean?
What's one of your popular titles that you get off the top of your head?
Mastering InDesign for Print Production and Design. It's the first and only book ever written that was not for beginning InDesign users.
Wow, great. Well, thank you, Pariah, for taking the time and for reminiscing on Quark and first InDesign.
Yeah, thank you, David. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, excellent. I wish you all the luck, and thank you again.
Thank you.
All right.